I want to tell you my story of addiction and of my renewal, redemption, and recovery. I grew up in a wonderful home. My father was a pastor, and I had an excellent Christian parents and a good upbringing. I had no trauma or any major emotional damage. But because of my Christian upbringing in the church and a Christian school, etc., I never really learned about sex. All I learned about sex was don't do it. The big three were don't drink, don't smoke, and don't have sex. So once I became a teenager and hit my rebellious streak, what do you think were the three things I wanted to do most? So I learned about sex through porn. I don't remember the first time I was exposed to it, but I know I was hooked right away. It was a thrill and a high. Eventually, I got into relationships in high school, which were sexual. I got into more and more porn and deeper and dirtier porn. I spent years in music, playing in bands, and living the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle where porn and sex was encouraged and praised. So I continued deeper and further into my addiction. Eventually, porn wasn't even enough, and I joined chat rooms and webcam sites. Eventually, that wasn't enough, and I met girls online for sexting and hookups. I eventually got married and had children, and I naively thought that would end my obsession with porn and sex, but it didn't. My addiction continued throughout my marriage. I was watching porn almost every day. I was spending hours chatting to girls and watching webcams. Things continued to escalate as those things eventually weren't enough for me anymore. I was hooking up with girls from Craigslist and Tinder. I went to sex clubs and participated in orgies. I sought out prostitutes, escorts, and massage parlors. I got caught several times. And like any good liar, I talked myself out of it. And I just got better at not getting caught. And this cycle continued for years. There would be times where I would stop for weeks or months at a time, but then I would slowly work my way back into it. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't stop. I tried to get help. I went to counseling, I read books, I tried harder, I prayed harder, but I just could not overcome the chains that kept me bound to my addiction. This continued and caused terrible damage to my marriage and my family. Finally, a few years ago, something changed. I had two very good friends that I was incredibly close with. Our families vacationed together, we hung out together all the time. These two guys have been my support and my accountability partners. They would check up on me and encourage me to keep trying to get better. But I lied to them just like I lied to everyone else. The last time I got caught, they gave up on me. They washed their hands of me. On one hand, it hurt. I lost my best friends when I felt like I needed them most. But on the other, I really can't blame them. But it was this event that woke me up. It was my catalyst to change. Looking back on it, it breaks my heart because it wasn't all the damage I caused to my family and all the pain I caused my wife that got me to change. It was losing my buddies, my drinking buddies, and my golf partners. That was eye-opening to me. But I'm glad it happened because that was my turning point. After that, I started getting serious help and guidance for my addiction. I realized I couldn't keep trying to fight that battle alone. I had hoped this problem would just go away and no one would ever know any of my secrets. But it didn't work like that. I received great help from some mentors, pastors, and counselors. I began to understand why I was addicted. It wasn't that I just had a higher sex drive or that I was a pervert. It was because I was seeking something through porn. I wasn't seeking sex. I was seeking acceptance, love, purpose, and fulfillment. I was just looking in all the wrong places. I learned that I did in fact have trauma in my past. I had a fear of rejection, a fear of not being good enough, and a fear of losing control. And I used porn and sex to escape from those feelings. Sex was a drug. It was self-medication to treat those wounds instead of finding healthy ways to cope with them and to process them. Once I dealt with those core issues causing my addiction, I started to find freedom. I stopped searching for fulfillment through sex and sought it out through living for God. Instead of masking my pain and trying to escape it, I found peace through healing. I confessed who I truly was and found grace through God and forgiveness from my family. Through several unique circumstances, I found myself as a mentor to other young men. They began opening up to me about their own struggles with porn and with sex. In turn, I shared my story of addiction and redemption. I was still uncomfortable talking about my past, but every time I opened up about my experiences, God found a way to use them to help other men and young men. I was able to coach and mentor some men in their own battles and help them find healing. I started a blog to express my thoughts and give advice and encouragement to men in this battle. Through my blog and social media, I received dozens and dozens of messages from men who are stuck in the same cycle of porn and sex addiction that I was. So I started coaching men online and wrote a book to help men start the process of finding freedom from porn addiction. And that's what brought me to this course. I wanted to have a way to offer guidance and support to men, even if I can't meet with them one-on-one. I hope you have found some hope and encouragement from my story. If I can finally live porn-free, anyone can. No one is beyond hope. No one is beyond help. God loves you and wants you to be free. I pray this course you're about to begin will start your journey to living porn-free. You can do it, brother. I believe in you. God will give you strength. Keep fighting. Never give up.